The Escapists 2 was a sequel to the kind of the cult hit game The Escapists that kind of blew up on YouTube a good few years ago now. And then we were all waiting for a sequel, and this is the sequel. I've got to this really, really late. I did not play this at launch. I got this years after this came out. So I've 100%ed it, and I figured I would do like a 10-minute, 15-minute little video on it, because it wasn't a bad game. It's just I think I expected too much from Team 17. I think I went into this expecting a lot more than what I actually got. So we'll talk base game first. Base game first is, I would say, better. The exercise and stuff is much a muchness. It's still kind of the same kind of mini games we had from the first game. The combat is still quite simple, but it's better now with the whole locking on and the blocking and the charging up and attack and stuff. So that's a little bit more in depth. Same with the weapons, where like certain weapons will have, like certain items will give you slightly better range on an attack, or certain items will do more damage, but you can only attack slowly with them, or you can get like a shiv and that will attack really, really quickly but does like no damage. So the base game and stuff has kind of improved. The crafting is I would say it's better. Having a list of stuff, and also having the hints around the map and stuff as well. Especially being like, oh, this is what you need to do to escape, and then having specific items to craft makes it a lot easier than just perimeter escapes, which makes it a lot more interesting as well than just doing perimeter escapes all the time. Now that we have like unique escapes, it gives the game a bit more character, which I really liked. I think my biggest disappointment, honestly, with the Escapists 2 is not so much in the way the game handles and the way that the gameplay is put out. Like, it's still quite the same thing. You've got your routines. If you miss those routines, then you get in trouble. Now we have a heat system, so the more people that miss routines, the more stars you get, almost like GTA in a way. So the more stars you have, the more security is around the prison, from more guards to then guard dogs. Which were a new feature, and also a very annoying one, because if you pass a dog with contraband on you, they will instantly detect it and then attack you, and there's nothing you can do about it. So the heat system is new as well. Having a map is quite nice, knowing where to go, things like that. So yeah, overall the base game is quite similar. It's got some kind of basic improvements, nothing out of this world, nothing drastically different. It is much the same kind of game you're playing, it's just better. The graphics have changed, I'm not sure how I feel. I do like the style of this game, but I did like the kind of more 8-bit pixely style of the original, and this has kind of moved away from that and made it like, I don't know, maybe 16-bit, I'm not sure. And it's a little bit less pixelated. It's still in that kind of pixel style, it's just not as pixelated, it's a bit more fleshed out and a little bit less kind of squished, if that makes sense. So the characters look a bit more like actual people, rather than just little 8-bit like characters running around. So like the art style, I like both of them. I think I'm leaning more towards the original, but I still like the art style. I think it does the job. It's like this little cute arcadey kind of escaping simulator game, and it does the job quite well. I think it's fine. The prison designs, I do like. In the video you're actually watching right now, this is one of the DLC prisons, which is Dungeons and Duct Tape. And I like this one a lot because the guards actually don't look like guards. They are all dressed up in like black armor and stuff, which I think is quite cool. So, each prison kind of has like a bit of uniqueness to it. And obviously with more prisons comes more difficulty as well, of course. But I think I want to move on and talk about the main thing that kind of was really 50-50 for me in this game, and that was the multiplayer. Now, the main reason everybody wanted a sequel to the original Escapists was because everyone was kind of saying, like, this game is great, but, it'd be even better if I could play this with my friends. And that was kind of the whole focus of a sequel, because we could play it with our friends. Now, there are two multiplayer modes in this game. There's a multiplayer mode which is a co-op mode, so up to 4 of you can play in a prison, and you can work together to complete either a perimeter escape or a unique multiplayer escape. Or you can play a versus mode. Again, I believe up to 4 of you, and you're all against each other. And there's no routines. There's no kind of heat level. There is just grab what you need and get out as fast as you can. There are no snipers, nothing like that. So it's more of a speed run rather than like actually planning to get out. Now, personally, the actual co-op mode I actually quite liked. Having unique escapes to work towards with friends, and just playing this game in general with friends, even just messing about, is actually quite enjoyable. The co-op aspect works really, really well. I think my one critique would just be, like, it would have been nice to have a bit more than just 2 escapes to pick from, because you either had the perimeter, or you had one unique multiplayer escape, so you were kind of tunnel visioned into just two different escapes. It would have been kind of nice to have quite a variety of escapes per prison, and not just 3 or 4, maybe like 6 or 7 maybe. But I do understand that obviously, like, the amount of prisons they have in the game, they can't just like do 7 escapes per prison, because you're going to run out of ideas very quickly, so I do understand that. Now, with the versus mode, I was a little bit more disappointed. I'm not one for PvP, but we did try it, me and my friends did try it, because there are achievements linked to it as well. And you can host your own lobbies, which is nice. You can host your own game with just friends, which is really, really good. So it doesn't force you to wait in matchmaking or anything. You can just, if you've got 3 mates that want to do it with you and you want to play against each other, you can just set that up easy peasy. So we gave it a go, and it's okay, I guess. We found out that a lot of the actual base game prisons didn't really kind of work well for kind of the speedrunning aspect of it, and the ones that kind of worked the best for the speedrunning aspect were actually the new transport prisons. Now, the original game didn't have transport prisons, but these are basically prisons that have a time limit because you're currently being moved from one prison to another, and the idea is you need to escape the transport before you get there. So those were timed anyway, like by default they are timed. So those kind of worked like really, really well in the versus mode because they were already timed by default. The versus mode is also timed by default, and it was kind of like, well, these prisons were already kind of a race against time anyway. So those kind of work kind of in harmony with the kind of mode with the versus. It worked in harmony with it. But then when you played like playing some of the easier prisons in versus worked as well, like Center Perks 2.0. and things like that worked because they weren't too extreme. They were quite easy, so you could speedrun them quite normally. But then, like, we were playing it, and the game gave us the USS Anomaly, which is the hardest prison in the game. And it was just awful. Like, it just didn't work well at all for a versus, like, kind of speedrunning mode. It just didn't work. There was just too much you needed to do, and none of us had any idea what was going on. And it just didn't kind of work that well. So the versus mode worked really, really well on transport prisons, but for like base game prisons, it was very much a toss of a coin on which prison you got, because for some it worked and for some it was just terrible. But on top of that, when they said they were going to do versus, I was expecting more of a kind of not fast kind of speedrunning mode. I was expecting more of a, it's the base game, but instead of it being co-op, you're just working against each other. So you could steal from each other's lockers, you could sabotage each other at job time, you could do this, you could do that. But it wasn't. It was just not. There's a speed limit. You know, there's a time limit. There's no snipers. You just have to be as fast as you can. So there was no really like setup. It was just you've got to get out as fast as you can, instead of actually like a setting up slowly and getting out and sneaking out and sabotaging each other. So that I thought was kind of a missed opportunity. You know, that's what I was kind of expecting, and that's not what we got. So, yeah, I don't know. And then I look at the achievement list. So the achievement list for the Escapists 2 is, I wouldn't say it's bad. You know, you've got to escape every prison. You've got to own all the DLC stuff and do the single player escapes and the unique multiplayer ones as well. Not too bad. You will need friends if you're planning on playing this game and 100%ing it. You will need at least one other person to do the multiplayer stuff with you, because you cannot do multiplayer escapes when you're playing single player. It just does not allow you to. And you'd need them to boost the versus achievements well of winning 10 versus games and playing your first versus game. But other than that, I don't think the achievement list is that bad. There's a few specifics here and there, but, you know, if you're really struggling, like, a guide online is not going to be the end. You know, it's not going to be that hard to follow a guide and just do what you need to do if it's really confusing you on some of them. For example, escaping on Snooty the Dolphin on HMP Offshore. Bit confusing if you don't know where he is and you don't know how to get to him with all the key cards and stuff, but like just getting a guide will literally give you a list of what you need, and we'll just be like, yeah, just do this, 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 and this, and you can just follow it step by step, bit by bit, and then you're sorted, so it's not that bad. But yeah, overall, The Escapists 2, it's not a bad game, it's not a bad sequel, I just expected more. You know, when a game gets a sequel, it usually means that the first game was really good, usually. And usually when you get a sequel, that sequel aims to improve vastly upon what was already expected, and The Escapists 2 just didn't do that for me. The most improvement that we got was we got a slight improvement to the combat, we got a change in art style, which is not an improvement nor a downgrade, it just depends on personal preference. We got a better crafting system, which I'm grateful for. We got a map, which I'm not going to shout and scream about because we should have had one in the first game anyway. We got multiplayer, which is a big step up, but the versus mode kind of lacking quite a bit. The co-op mode, good, just needed. I just feel like it needed a bit more escapes, or even maybe multiplayer only prisons. So yeah, it kind of didn't. It was a good game to play with friends, but it didn't blow me away. And the one thing I think, and this is kind of like, I don't know if we're ever going to get an Escapists 3. I don't think we are, but if we were, the one thing I think Team 17 should really, really, really consider doing is having 3 modes. So having single player, multiplayer, so multiplayer being split down the middle to co-op and versus, and then they should have a third mode, which is a prison editor. So you should be able to make and create your own prisons and submit them, and then people should be able to pick from a list and play them with their friends. That way they don't have to stress. It's a very good way of keeping a game alive for years after it's released, and Halo does this a lot with Forge, where, you know, a player would upload a prison and that prison does really well, so like, okay, we'll make that a mainstay for like 2 weeks, like we'll put it to the top of the list to be like, this is a popular one, like everyone's playing this one. You get the players to do your job for you because they will be making prisons, which means there's constantly fresh content being done. Now obviously the prisons would have to be fair. They'd have to be play tested by the creator first, and if the creator can escape, then the prison can go live, sort of thing. If they can't do it because they've made it too impossible, then the prison cannot go live unless they can complete it themselves. I just think, like, why is that not a thing? Because that could be huge. Like, that would genuinely keep the game living for so long, and you could do achievements for that easily as well, like make your first prison, make 5 prisons, make 10 prisons, play your first custom prison, play 5 custom prisons, play 10 custom prisons, escape from your first custom prison, escape from 5 custom prisons, escape from 10 custom prisons, have your prison be, this one's a bit more hard, but like have your prison be like at the top of the list, popular for 2 weeks or whatever, like have it be one of the ones that gets like a spotlight put on it because it's done really well. You know, the achievements wouldn't be hard to create for that either. Now the mode itself would be a bit of a nightmare because they've never done it before, but like surely you just take the assets that you've got and then you just slowly build a mode around it. Like, yes, would it be a lot of work? Yeah, probably. Would it be worth it? I think so, because then you've got a creative mode where people can make content for you, which means there's less pressure on you to think up DLC ideas, and you have more time to do those DLC ideas because people are already making prisons anyway with the assets that you have provided them. Obviously, it's too late now for The Escapists 2. This game came out in like 2016 and it was 2024. This is years ago. So I don't think we are getting an Escapists 3, but if it ever does come into the works and Team 17 needs some ideas, then I feel like they'd be stupid to not make a prison builder if they make a 3rd game, because that would be huge. I feel like that would just benefit it so much. But to conclude, The Escapists 2 is not a bad game, but it's not a good game either. It's kind of average. As I said, a sequel usually aims to and intends to improve vastly on what the original offered. Whether that's a game, whether that's a movie, whether that's a book. And The Escapists 2 didn't blow me away. We got some minor improvements, the biggest improvement being multiplayer, but they shouted and screamed about that the entire time anyway, so that was kind of the main reason for making this in the first place. But like overall game-wise improvements, we did not get a lot. And maybe I'm being overly critical. Maybe I am, and if you think I'm being overly critical, then let me know in the comments. But I feel like a lot of my videos I'm too nice. about games. I just kind of go like, yeah, it was okay, and in the back of my mind I'm like, well, it was okay, but I got really fed up of it, and also it just this and this wasn't good, but I never bring it up. So I'm trying to be a little bit more critical in my videos going forward. So look, The Escapists was a fun game, and I'm not saying I wouldn't buy it again. Like, I'm not saying I wouldn't do it all over again if I was to, you know, uninstall it and lose all my achievements and have to do it again. I'm not saying I wouldn't, because I would. It wasn't a bad game. It was enjoyable. It's just, as a sequel, I expected far more than what we got, and sequels usually intend to, you know, aim to improve and achieve more than their predecessors, and it just didn't. You know, they set the bar quite low, and they hit the bar, but they didn't. It's not. It doesn't feel like they strived to improve it hugely. But it's not a bad game. So if you see it on sale and you like the first one, or you're just interested, or you've got a couple of friends that are like, yo, do you want to try this? I'd recommend it. It's a fun little game. It can get a little bit hard and a little bit aggravating towards the later prisons. You might need a guide or two and a shit ton of patience. But overall, not a bad game, just not a great game either. But I wouldn't say don't play it. So that's my video on The Escapists 2. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, leave it a like and consider subscribing. I make a video every 2 weeks. More to come on games. Obviously, I'm playing Dishonored at the moment, so expect something on that. I'm also wrapping up Forza Horizon 4 in the next 2 weeks. Currently down 2 seasons, got 2 seasons to 100%, and then I can fully uninstall Horizon 4. I've already made 2 videos on Horizon 4, so I might not make a third one. Might be a little bit pointless, but Dishonored I can definitely look at making a video on, because it's a really good game for the most part. I do have some gripes with it, but I'll leave those for the video. But yeah, without further ado, I'm going to dip. I hope you guys have a good day, evening / night. Stay safe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take it easy and stay safe.